Imagine being able to cheat at cards just by dealing them like this. So whenever you ask somebody to stop you, doesn't matter where or when, you always land at the card you wanted to. This is known as a strike second deal. And in this video, I will share with you everything you need to know to learn this card technique in no time. Plus, at the bonus section, I will show you how I personally implement this into my card magic repertoire, and also pro tips that will allow you to force cards smoothly even though you're surrounded. So if it sounds good to you, grab your deck of cards, sit down, and let's get into it. For those who are not familiar with the second deal, what's going on basically is that we create the illusion that we are dealing the top card, while instead we're just dealing all the time we go to the deck the second card from the top. In order for us to understand and grasp all the details in this tutorial, what I'm going to be doing is to break it down in two main parts. The first part is going to be the mechanics, where I'll teach you all the details and the steps we have to go through in order for us to consistently get the muscle memory and the practice process so we can start to get comfortable with the technique. And the second part, and also being extremely important, is the way we're going to interiorize and naturalize it in our hands. Because as you will see, our aim in this technique is to aim as much as possible into what a real card dealing would look like. So now getting into the mechanics, we're going to start by growing the deck into a, let's say, deeper mechanics grip. The base of the thumb will be covering part of the left corner of the deck like this. In order to achieve that in a natural way is just by opening our palm like this, so we get the cards naturally pushed by gravity against our fingers. So the face of our thumb, when closing the palm, gets naturally on top of the left corner like this. So once we get comfortable with the grip, it's time to get into the sliding part. How we're going to slide the card so we can create the space that's known as the brief that will allow us with our dealing hand to start dealing the second card. In here, it's important to understand that the top card will not just be moving from side to side like this. What we're going to be doing is to combining two motions. With the thumb contacting the top left corner of the deck, we're going to pull down against the base of our thumb while also moving from side to side. So what we just created is a secure pivot point that would allow us to consistently move the card side to side and therefore create this brief space that we're gonna be using to deal the second card. So it's very important that once you practice and get familiar to it, is to get familiar first with the pulling motion down while at the same time going from side to side like this. And here what's important to understand is that the thumb is gonna be contacting more or less the top left corner like this. Sometimes it's like this, more in the center. I would recommend you as a beginner going more towards the left corner. And what's important here is that we're not gonna be just moving the card side to side like this, yeah, because as you can see now the card is getting kind of different positions, that this is not gonna be stable at all. So what we're gonna do is to pull down against the base of our thumb while also moving from side to side like this. So what we're achieving is basically an stable, secure pivot point that we can use in our favor so we can do as much times as we want the second deal in a consistent way. So important, not only just side to side, also pulling down so we can consistently maintain this pivot point that will be very important for us to continue with. Probably at this point of the tutorial, you're wondering how big the space in between the top and the second card should be. I will first recommend you not to focus much on this. This will be more kind of in a perfection phase where you understand the technique and start to perfect it in your hands. Try to aim towards space that it feels comfortable in your hands and will allow you to consistently doing the second deal. Of course, it does not have to be something this big, but neither this small. I think a medium or balanced position, I think, will be ideal. If you don't know how big is my brief when I do the second deal, sometimes it's as big as this, depending on how sticky or brand new is the deck, or sometimes it's smaller. It depends. But I would recommend you try to find a balance in between creating enough space so you can consistently do the second deal and small enough so you can keep creating the illusion and make it convincing. But getting into the smallest possible is not the best advice, at least for now. Just try to do this once you are experienced with the technique. So once we know how to grip the cards, maintain the pivot point, and start to create these brief windows that we're gonna take advantage of, it's time to talk about the dealing hand. In this case, the dealing hand, what's gonna be doing is first, we're gonna contact the top of the right corner of the second card by the side of the thumb, like this. So we can start dragging the second card out like this. Once it's, let's say, out enough, we're gonna be using our middle finger to clip the card with our thumb and middle finger like this, so we can continue dragging it out in a smooth way and finally dealing it to the table like this. I know this could be a little bit challenging, but first, instead of just trying to make it fast, let's try to get familiar with how it feels. Yeah, it's important here to build a muscle memory, so you will not be paying as much attention whenever you need to do the second deal. Try to get first into contacting with the side of your thumb, the top right corner, drag it in out, creating enough space so you can then put your middle finger and continue the motion so you can get a smooth and nice second deal like this. Something I would like to point out here, in case you're going to be using the second deal as a card force, is that if somebody makes you go through a lot of cards, which is not a problem itself, the deck will be changing its sides, which will create some instabilities that with experience you will be able to, let's say, go through or overcome. But what's important here is that we have to adapt the grip whenever the cards start to run out into a more flattening position, because flattening this mechanics grip position will allow us to still keep maintaining this pivot point, even though it will not be as stable, but this is the best way for us to adapt to this size of the deck. So it's important as an exercise that whenever you practice second deal is to do it until you finish with the whole deck. Even though, of course, the last cards will not look very good, but you never know. If you're using this as a force, you have to be ready to go through all the deck if the spectator wants to. So once you get familiar with the mechanics, practice a second deal by going through all the deck until you finish with it. So once we start to get familiar with the technique and start to practice it and get the muscle memory required, it will be important to start thinking on how to naturalize it and making it feel organic in our hands. And the way to do that is first to understand how we're gonna deal cards without doing any technique. How our hands are moving. Are they moving from side to side like this? Or are they more like calmer, softer? What is the position of the fingers? How does the thumb move? So all these questions will be very important for us to understand how to reshape the mechanics of it into a more organic and natural technique. And something I'll recommend you here is to pay a lot of attention on the body language, because I see a lot of magicians, whenever they do a second deal, that they're signaling by doing this shaky motion like this. They're going from both hands side to side like this in a very big and exaggerated way, which it's not the worst, but we're trying to aim again to get it as close as possible to the real action. I think a great advice here would be to just give one hand the leading part of the move. Because if I'm doing it side to side like this will start to look unnatural and weird. Whereas if I'm just getting, in this case, the leading hand, the right one, as the leading motion. Because you can feel the difference whenever you do this than whenever you start to do this, you know? Of course, now I'm exaggerating, but this feels kind of like rushing, sketchy. And a good second deal is a second deal that, you know, does not rush, does not have any issue, because there's nothing to hide here, or at least that's the goal of it. And it's important that the leading motion will be mostly coming from the dealing one, because if we deal normally, we'll see that our left hand does not move as much. The one doing all the job is basically the one that is dealing the cards. Something else that will be important to train is the rhythm in which we're gonna be doing the second deal. It's important that doesn't matter we start fast or slow, we always try to keep the same type of rhythm, because if we go too fast in the beginning because we're nervous and then we start to slow down, we're gonna somehow be signaling that we are interested on avoid certain areas and not others from the deck, because we should not bring any attention or focus into a simple action, which is just dealing cards on the table. Later in the bonus section, we're gonna work deeper on that, because we're gonna be implementing it as a card force. So here what will be important is to stick with the rhythm you started with. Yeah, if you started fast, you can continue fast. If you started slow, you can continue slow. And also keep in mind that you can do it slow as long as it's well covered and well executed. You can just do like this one by one, which could be also perfect. And as you can see, there's not much cards, so if you know the right technique and the right timing and the good body language, it doesn't really matter. But you have to stick to that rhythm so you don't bring attention to places where there should be nobody paying attention to. So link with the rhythm, something that could happen is this, that you're gonna try to deal the card, but nothing comes out, and you will kind of deal an invisible card. This is an inconsistency that could cut the rhythm, and it will start to, you know, create discrepancies that we don't want people to perceive. So what's important is that whenever we practice is to always try to get a feeling that will get you into the same situation, so you can consistently go and do the second deal with no problem, so you can avoid having this awkward invisible card deal. But if it happens, you just try to ignore it and try to keep the rhythm. If you just did this, just try to readjust it and secure it by continuing and try to not pay as much attention to it. And here I have to tell you, the best way to address this technique is by understanding that people does not know that this exists. Of course, they could have an idea if you are bringing the attention towards the wrong moment and the wrong position, but spectators will not look for something that they don't know either exists or that caught their attention. And as a proof of that, for example, for a while I've been wearing a thumb tip, a fake one. So only when I point it out is when you see it. So let me know in the comments if you haven't perceived it, because if that's the case, this is the proof that as long as you don't bring attention to where it should be, or the people does not know or looking for that thing, they will not find it. So just naturalize it and try to be cool with it. So these are all the steps and details you have to keep in mind to practice and learn the second wheel properly. If you like to incorporate this as a convincing car force, I invite you now to get ready, because we're gonna see it now at the bonus section. So in this bonus section, I'm gonna be showing you the strategies I use in order for me to force cars in a convincing and natural way, even though I'm surrounded. But before we get into the explanation, let's see how I apply the second deal in a real performance. So I would like to start this show with a classic, by guessing a car, but with a little twist. So I'm gonna ask you, sir, what's your name?
Brian.
Brian. Okay, Brian. I'll be passing cars like this, and whenever you want, you're gonna tell me stop.
Okay.
But just because I don't want you to feel pressure, we all gonna watch you until you say stop. So Brian, enjoy the attention.
Okay. Stop.
Wow, we have kind of a narcissist here. I
Yes.
see you like attention a lot. But you stop me here, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I want you, please, only you, take a glimpse at the car you chose.
Only me.
Yeah, only you.
Okay.
You could see the performance. The focus shifted from the table where the action is happening to the spectator, which is the perfect situation for me to conceal and cover what is by far the worst angle in which you can watch a second deal going on. And here, even though the spectator does not know what a second deal is or know it exists, I think still kind of visible, and there's high chances that the person at some point can perceive some weird movement or something going on that will lead to see that there's actually a second deal happening. So in order for me to do that, and breaking down everything step by step from the beginning to the end, what I'm doing first is to condition spectators by dealing 3 cards legitimately. This is something I got from Alex Pandrea in his channel, and what he's doing basically is implement this conditioning strategy by dealing 3 cards in a legitimate way. Then you have the card you want to force or interested in already on the first position, so you can start dealing like this, yeah, doing the second deal. This is already something that is conditioning, that there's nothing to hide and that this is not important at all for now, because there's some kind of stereotype that I think we magicians created on making stopping us in a car awkward. We create this tension that is not needed and making an action that it's not important at all or should not be important, which is just to stop us at a car. But somehow, whenever I get into this dynamics, I'm like, please tell me stop. For some reason, everybody is already getting into this awkward feeling, like to see if the person who is gonna stop me is gonna make it harder or is gonna play along with me, or that I'm trying to force a car. And that's something that we have to work on a lot as magicians. In order for me to overcome this awkwardness or this tension that should not be there, what I'm trying to do is to create this pressure tension to the spectator by saying what you could see on the performance, by putting all the attention on them and saying, like, in a fun way that, for you to not have pressure, we're all gonna watch you until you say stop. This creates this interesting dynamic, and in order for me to make sure that these 2 spectators are gonna follow my orders, even though they're not formulated as such, what I'm doing is first make sure that I'm gonna have eye contact. First, by shifting my body and making sure that they're looking at me, and then second here. So like this, I know that they're receiving the message. And of course, something else that will help me a lot is my personality and confidence. If you are the person in charge in the room, you should project it with your personality and your gestures. If you are giving sensation of being somebody sketchy, rude, or somebody that does not feel as friendly, they will tend not to follow your orders or indirect orders. Doesn't matter how you formulate it. They will be like, I don't care. I just want to, see what you're doing and go. So it's very important to have this combination of both. Have first welcoming, friendly, positive way of interacting with people. Plus then try to work on the body language so you can make sure They will look at you, understand the message, and therefore, without asking themselves if they should do it or not, just follow what you just suggested, which is more an invitation than an order. But I want them to take it as a, we're gonna look at you. So I want you to look at the person. So here's how I'm creating this fun moment where I can tell you by experience, people is mostly interested on see how the person who's gonna stop me at some point will react when everybody's gonna look at them. Plus, since I created this pressure, what it's benefiting me is that the person will tend not to go through a lot of cars, so I will not have to readjust or, let's say, have the chances to don't perform the second deal as accurate. So all this is going towards creating the perfect scenario for me to calmly and relaxedly do the second deal with no problem. So here, the sky is the limit. I recommend you to see this technique as a very useful card forcing technique, which from my experience, I can tell you it's my go-to. It's the one I use all the time, and it's the one that never brought any awkward situation or people thinking that I'm forcing a card, because it doesn't matter if they don't want to, I can still keep going and I can make that force card to be at any point in the deck. Here also you can exploit as different techniques to make maybe an obsession card routine where the card that is chosen or the card is forcing is everywhere and nowhere at the same time. You know, here, as I said, the sky is the limit. So I recommend you to play as much as it as possible. Share in the comments if there's something you would like to share on which approach is the one that you use or the one that you are considering using, because I would like to see how you think of that and how you explore through it, and we can all learn from it. So that was the tutorial. I hope you like it. I hope you enjoy it. And if so, please don't forget to give me a like. This will help me a ton. And if you like this type of content, consider subscribing, as I'll be uploading many other tutorials in the future that will go from basic to intermediate to more advanced, so everybody will have a tutorial according to their level. Plus, if you're interested in magic, I have some other cool videos about debates, about analysis and reviews that I'm sure you'll be interested in. And now, if you want to keep learning and enjoy magic with me, and then you hear these super cool videos that I'm sure you will enjoy, thank you so much for watching this tutorial till the end, and I hope to see you in the next one.